I'm Georgia, and apparently I vlog now. So I've been toying with the idea of doing a vlog for a while, mostly just because I watch a lot of them and always feel like I would like to do one. I feel like it'd be fun. Particularly I watch Disney trip vlogs, Disney reveal vlogs, sort of general day-to-day vlogs and hauls and packing videos and all sorts. I put this out to Twitter, and to be fair, if you're here at the moment for the first video, you probably followed me here from Twitter, in which case, hi, thanks, nice to see you. And I asked sort of what sort of thing you'd want me to talk about, sort of whether it was travel vlogs or infertility stuff, or whether you just want to follow me around on my day-to-day life or whatever. And the general consensus was a bit of everything. So I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see how it goes. I might realise I'm incredibly boring and stop after a couple, but we'll give it a try. So because this is the first one, I don't have any equipment, so I'm doing this on my phone. I'm using a lamp that I bought in IKEA for £12 so that I could see my knitting. So that's why there's glare on my glasses, and it probably doesn't look super great or sound super great. If it goes well and if you like it, then I'll invest in some proper equipment. So I thought I'd do a couple of little intro videos, just really short, just sort of give you a bit of my background and a bit of some of the stuff I'll probably be talking about. So this probably won't just be my channel. It'll probably be a mix of me and my husband Adam, because we go on a lot of our trips together. We do a lot of our stuff together. We're both really into music, so we might do some music vlogs at some point. Him significantly more so than me, and he's also much more talented than me. So we might do some stuff around that. We'll just see what happens. So with that in mind, I thought I'd talk to you today about our background and our history, particularly our struggles with infertility. So I watch a lot of these my infertility story videos on YouTube because it makes me feel less alone, particularly when someone's had a success story. Unfortunately, I don't have that for you today. Maybe one day. So maybe it will just tell you a little bit more about us. Maybe it'll just give someone a little bit of hope, or just make them feel less alone, or whatever. I don't know your reasons for watching, but obviously it's a sensitive subject, so there are some content warnings. I'll put everything I can think of content warning wise in the description below. Off the top of my head, we'll definitely be talking about infertility, hospital stays, periods, bleeding, medical procedures, miscarriage, and that sort of thing. I'll give it a really good think once I finish the video, and I'll make sure I include all the content warnings below, just so you can avoid anything that you might find upsetting. So Adam and I have been married for coming up to 5 years, 5 years in June this year. So it's currently 2020. We've been together for coming up to 11 years. So we got together when I was 19 and he was 20. Having kids was always something that we knew we wanted to do. It was always something that was on the cards for us. We wanted to be married for a little bit first, but we knew we were working against the clock. So when I was 19, I was at uni. I noticed that my periods were really irregular. And when they did show up, they were really, really heavy. So I could go like 7 or 8 months without having anything. And then some, like, the Shining lift doors opening type thing would happen. And it was excruciatingly painful. So I went to the doctors. They were great. They ordered some blood tests and a scan, and basically came back and said, yes, you've got polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS. So if you don't know, essentially what that means is my ovaries have little cysts on both on the inside and on the outside of them, which makes it really hard for me to ovulate. It also messes with my hormones. So some of the symptoms of PCOS include things like really heavy periods, really irregular periods, excessive body hair growth, weight gain, acne, just sort of as standard. I don't have all of those. I really lucky that I don't really struggle with the acne. I have some body hair growth. It's mostly around my belly button, but I don't have any on my face, which a lot of people do. So that's what we were working with, essentially, and we knew that going in. So when we got married, we knew we wanted to have kids eventually, but we knew we'd have to start a little bit earlier than we ideally would have if I hadn't had this syndrome. So when I was diagnosed initially, I asked the doctor what we did about it, and she essentially said, there's nothing to be done at the moment, but if you want to have kids at any point, you might just need a little bit of extra help. And she was right. So we were married for about 6 months, and then we stopped being quite so careful with contraception, and thought, okay, if it happens, then it's meant to happen. And then about 7 or 8 months in, so it was February of 2016, we decided, actually, yeah, we're gonna start trying, because it might take a while, and we want to get on it. And obviously that was coming up to 4 years ago now, which is a very, very long time to have been trying. Some people get pregnant within a few months. What was that? I think my cat's snoring. Sorry. So where was I? Yes. So we'd been married for about 8 months. In February 2016, we decided we were going to go ahead and actually start trying. We went to the doctor straight away because we knew we were going to have this issue with my polycystic ovaries. So we went and said, we want to start trying to get pregnant. We know that this might be an obstacle. Is there anything we need to do now? And they basically said, no, you're perfectly healthy. Just go ahead and start trying. And if in a year nothing's happened, then come back and see us. So it was a year. It was really difficult that year because we sort of were without guidance, and all we really had was YouTube videos and forums, and I was using the Glow app. So if you don't know, you can track your fertility quite closely if you have regular periods by doing things like basal body temperature readings, checking your cervical mucus, which is really delightful, and just monitoring various symptoms throughout the month or throughout your cycle. So people who have periods generally can map them if they want to. So for example, your basal body temperature you have to take first thing in the morning before you've even got out of bed, because the second you move you can elevate it. And I was doing that. I was tracking temperatures, and I was taking the folic acid and the Well Woman pills, and I was checking my cervical mucus every day and mapping it all into this app, and there was just no clear correlation for anything. Like there was no answer. So basically, either I wasn't ovulating, or if I was, it was just completely sporadic and there was no way to track it. So we did that for a year, and we were obviously trying for the whole year. Nothing was happening. So we went back after a year, and they were great. They referred us straight onto the gynae service at the Infertility clinic, where we've been ever since. I had a load of tests done with them. So I'll talk you through a few of the things that we had tested. So Adam had sperm analysis, and that all came back fine. I had blood tests, and that all came back fine. I went for ultrasounds. They confirmed the PCOS, but said that it wasn't that bad. It was just mild, which would explain why I only have some of the side effects. And then I went for an HSG, which the full medical name I can't pronounce, so I'll put it here. One of them, which is really, really grim. So essentially they inject dye through your cervix into your uterus and your fallopian tubes, and then have a look with an X-ray as it drains to see if there's any blockages or any reason that anything wouldn't be able to get through your fallopian tubes. So I went and had one of those, and that all came back fine, so there were no blockages. So essentially if I was ovulating, the eggs would be getting through. They couldn't see any issues with my womb lining. Everything seemed to be fine except for the polycystic ovaries. But even so, just with the state of things with the NHS, and obviously the NHS are amazing. I'm really, really grateful that I haven't had to pay for any of this. But it's really difficult for us to get appointments at the clinic that we go to. So we go maybe every 3 to 6 months. Our last appointment was in July, and our next appointment is in a couple of weeks, and it's now January. So you can see it's quite a wait between appointments. So essentially what they did initially, once they'd done all the tests and they were happy that everything was okay, was they gave me Clomid or clomiphene citrate. So they put me on that. First of all, they put me on another medication, which I can't remember the name of, so I'm going to look it up and I'm going to put it here. And that made me have a period. And then as soon as you start your period, then you start taking the Clomid on the second day, I think, or the third day. I can't remember. It was such a long time ago. So this was not this Christmas just gone, but the Christmas before. So November, I started taking it. November 2018, I started taking it. And the first month, I cramped a load when I took it, like a lot. Like I could really, really feel the ovulation. And I took an ovulation test and I got the strongest positive. It was the first time I'd ever had a positive on an ovulation test. So that was really promising. And then I had my period, so obviously didn't work on the first cycle. But then as soon as my period started, I started taking the Clomid again. And that time it worked. And we conceived, and I was pregnant, and I found out in the gap between Christmas and New Year's Eve. On New Year's Eve, we told our best friend, which was a little bit early, but we were very excited. And as you can probably tell from where this video is going, it didn't stick. And I had a miscarriage in January, which was classified as a missed miscarriage, even though I knew. I started spotting, and it didn't hurt. It just, what I noticed was my boobs stopped hurting. So the first thing that made me take the pregnancy test was that my boobs really hurt, like really, really hurt. And that's just completely went overnight. And I started spotting, and I remember saying to Adam, this isn't right, it's not going to stick. And everyone was telling me it's fine, it happens, symptoms come and go, you're really early. But I knew, I just know. I just knew. So, so I went to the early pregnancy unit and told them what happened. Because it had been Christmas, I hadn't even managed to get hold of any of the pregnancy services or even my fertility service, because everyone had just been off on holiday. So no one even knew that I was pregnant until this started happening. And I went into the early pregnancy unit and they did a scan and they said, how far along do you think you are? And at this point I was about five or 6 weeks. And they said, we can't see anything that would be 5 or 6 weeks. We can see something that would be 4 weeks. So from that point I knew, like, this isn't, like, they could see the sac, but they couldn't see the yolk. So there was like an empty shell, but whatever was inside it wasn't there anymore. They also noted that there were 2 sacs. So initially they said maybe it's a twin pregnancy and you've lost one of them and the other one's just still growing. But that wasn't the case. And so I did lose both of them. And I waited a few weeks and they said sort of, and so they asked me to keep coming back for blood tests every 48 hours so they could see if my hormones, my pregnancy hormones, the HCG was doubling, because if it's doubling then things are progressing normally. And then from sort of the second blood test they said this going up, but it's not doubling, which is what we would want to see. And the whole thing is such a blur of everything that happened. There were a lot of blood tests and a lot of going back for scans and a lot of waiting in this same room with a lot of pregnant people, which sucked. Until eventually they were like, yeah, this is, the sac's growing, but it's not growing as fast as it should be. It's not as big as it should be based on your dates. Your HCG is not going up. We think you've miscarried. And then I went to Vegas. That's not relevant to the story. It's just I had a week's gap between seeing them and seeing them again. And I went to Vegas and I knew I'd miscarried. Like I'd started taking pregnancy tests and they were coming up lighter and lighter and lighter and then negative. So I went to Vegas and I enjoyed Vegas for a week. And then I came back and they did the scan again and they did the blood tests again. They said, yeah, your levels are going down. But this sac is still here. And basically presented me with the options of I could just wait and see if and when it came out on its own, which supposedly would have hurt a lot and been pretty brutal. But what they suggested was that I go for an ERPC, which is an evacuation of the retained products of conception. It's essentially the newer version of a D&C, if you ever had a D&C or heard of a D&C. And that was, I went in for a scan and they basically said, we want to do it now, and admitted me there and then. So I had nothing with me. They'd told me not to eat anything just in case. So I was already nil by mouth. But I hadn't brought like an overnight bag or anything, so I had to send Adam back to get me an overnight bag. My mum stayed with me for a bit, and then I was just in this sort of side room in the hospital for the entire day. I got maybe 1 or 2 checkups. Someone came and fitted a cannula. I got given like a gown and some pop socks, and then I was just left there, which was, I don't want to sound really dramatic, but possibly one of the worst experiences of my life. Obviously was incredibly emotional because I not only had tried for 2 years to get pregnant, and then when it had finally happened, had it ripped away from me. I was then sat in a room on my own for hours, and like obviously elevated by the hunger as well, waiting for them to come and operate on me and just take the rest of it out. It was really pretty brutal. And then they had an emergency come in and had to perform surgery on the emergency. So I had to wait and stay overnight and hope that they'd have time for me the next day. So over the course of 48 hours, I ate a jacket potato because that's what they let me eat that night. And then as soon as I woke up, I was nil by mouth again. They came in at midnight and took my water away. And again, it doesn't sound that bad when you say it now, but it was a really horrible experience. I think just because I wasn't prepared for it at all. And the only thing that I had to do was just to sit there and think about what I was losing, what I was sitting there losing and waiting for them to take away from me. And it just fucking sucked. And then eventually they came and took me down, and the procedure itself only took about half an hour. And then once I woke up, I had to eat something to prove that I was fine, and then they let me go home a few hours later. And then when I got home, I ordered pizza from one takeaway and sides from a different takeaway because the pizza I wanted didn't sell jalapeno poppers. And all I'd been thinking about for the whole 2 days of not eating anything was jalapeno poppers. So at least I got that out of it. So that was fun. That was last February, so nearly a year ago now. We've not been able to try since then because ever since that miscarriage and ever since that procedure, I have been bleeding consistently for a year, up until about a week ago. And I've had spells where it sort of stopped for a few days, but this is the longest that it's gone. So I'm hoping it's over and we can start trying again. But essentially I was just bleeding. Like sometimes it was really light and spotting, sometimes it was incredibly heavy and enormous clots. So yeah, the last year has just been like a write-off, and it's been awful. And like at one point, have you ever seen American Horror Story, season 1, Murder House, where Vivian is pregnant and every time she leaves the house, she starts bleeding because that like the baby is a demon that needs to be in the house or whatever. It was like that. It was like every time I thought I was fine, I'd leave the house and suddenly just like the floodgates would open. So that was super. I've ruined some jeans, I've ruined some underwear with those enormous clots. So that's fun. But it seems to have stopped like about a week ago today. It just sort of stopped out of nowhere. So I'm hoping that it's done. I went back to the fertility clinic and told them that this was happening. And they basically just said, yeah, your hormones are all out of whack from the miscarriage. You just got to wait for them to settle down, which wasn't great. They put me on metformin in the hope that that would do something. I've been taking it for 6 months. It's done not a lot. The latest from the fertility clinic, and we are going back in a couple of weeks, is that they asked me to lose weight, which is pretty standard. I mean, they've said that like Clomid is more likely to work if your BMI is under 30. One of the other things that I'm going to talk about in another vlog, because I've been rambling for like 25 minutes now, is my history with eating disorders, my history with sort of body image. So to then be told you have to lose weight in order to have a baby, which is the thing that I've been trying to do for 4 years now, it's really, really difficult to do it in a healthy way without falling back into all those old habits. And I will do another video about that another day, just about trying to balance those two, trying to find a way of losing weight so that I can have a kid, because I don't have another option, without making myself really mentally unwell. But I think that's basically the story. I may have skimmed over some bits. If I have, it's just because I was getting into the swing of talking. You might notice that I don't really get that emotional talking about it. And mostly that's, number one, I've not lost hope yet. So from some of the stories that I've seen, people have come back from a lot worse. We've only tried one treatment. I mean, IVF's not funded in our area, but if we really needed to, we could probably pull the money together and pay for it. And we're really, really lucky that we could do that. So this is only the first thing we've tried. It's just that the recovery time has been ridiculous. And honestly, I can't. There have been times where I've let myself get emotional, where I've let myself feel it, because sometimes you just have to. But I know when I drop that ball and when I start thinking in that way and when I go down that road, it's really, really, really hard to come back from it. So I have to stay in this positive space, because I don't really have another choice, because I can't. Like, Adam's great and he'll always be here to listen to me and talk to me, and obviously he's going through it too. So I think we're just trying to keep each other positive at the moment. And I think if we have another few failures, then yeah, I'll start to get concerned. But at the moment I still have hope, which may be really naive, but I'm doing it for now. And the other way that we've dealt with just the whole situation is that we've looked at it as something that we're doing on the side of our regular lives. We're not focusing. So when we originally started trying, we was focusing so much energy and so much attention on trying to get pregnant, as if it was the only thing in the world that mattered, which made every time I had a negative result on a pregnancy test back, and every time I didn't ovulate, and every time we went to an appointment and had nothing new or nothing good, every time was just a massive blow, and it was really hard to deal with. And I think we've both tried to move away from that "this is the only thing we're doing" mindset, and start enjoying other aspects of our lives. So if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, you'll notice we go on a lot of holidays. So our reasoning behind that is we aren't going to be able to afford to do that when we have, I'm going to say when, because I still have hope, when we have a kid. we aren't going to be able to go on holiday. When we have a kid, we aren't going to be able to afford it. We're not going to have time to, like maybe some, but not as much as we do now. And just act as immature and stuff as we do at the moment. And so some of the stuff that we do at the moment is we're just gonna enjoy ourselves. We're taking these few years to just treat ourselves and just be nice to ourselves, because it's really, really hard, you guys. It's really difficult. So we treat ourselves so that we can feel better, and so that we've got something else going on, essentially. So that's where we're at. I might do an update after our appointment in a couple of weeks. I've not lost as much weight as the doctor wants me to, so I don't know that there'll be anything new. Chances are, in a few weeks or in a couple of months, if the bleeding stays stopped, they're going to put me back on the Clomid, and we'll go for round 2 and we'll try again. I know we only get 6 goes at the Clomid on the NHS, and we've already used 2 of those, so kind of close now, guys. But yeah, I mean, all we can do is keep plodding along, really. I got so upset after the miscarriage and after everything. I just can't let myself go back to that at the moment, because I won't come back. So yeah, that's where we're at. I think I've probably missed a few bits from that story, but I think you get the general gist. And I'll keep up with the infertility videos if you want that sort of content. If there's something about what I've said I'm going to talk about that you really want to hear about, so you want to hear more about Disney stuff, or you want to hear more about holiday stuff, or we've recently renovated a VW Transporter T4 into a day van / camper van, if you want to hear some more about that or whatever. Thank you for watching, you guys. I hope it wasn't too much of a bummer, and I hope it wasn't too long. I feel like it was really long. Yeah, I hope it helps.